So I saw the trailer for Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it is awesome. First, let me start by saying that I love Spider-Man PS4. As you can tell by the small clips I play it often, not only is it a massive love letter to every Spider-Man adaptation, but it's also a great example of what a real Amazing Spider-Man movie looks like. Because the format of the game definitely looks like you're in a movie. And this is not to throw any shade at the Amazing Spider-Man movies, as I know that Mark Webb did try his hardest to make the movies feel more unique like the Sam Raimi movies. However, they most certainly do have some stuff in them that were unnecessary and didn't really amount to any of the important elements of the story. Spider-Man PS4, on the other hand, balances out the story between Peter Parker and his rogues gallery very well, which is why it is highly regarded as the best Spider-Man adaptation. Though that's not to say that I think the game is flawless. One gripe I will say I do honestly have with this game, or at least had with this game, is the exclusion of the symbiote suit. Now, of course, I understand why they decided not to include the symbiote suit into the game. Obviously, it's because they're saving Venom for a separate storyline. I just always thought it was kind of weird, seeing a Spider-Man game have all these cool Spider-Man suits, but not the Venom suit. Because the Venom suit is actually one of my favorite suit adaptations of Spider-Man, and them not including it in Spider-Man PS4 did feel a bit jarring for me. But of course I know now that they're saving it for a separate story, which I'm okay with. Hope they include Carnage Spidey as well. As for all the other stuff in the game, such as Mary Jane for example, I don't really have too much of an issue with. A lot of people are going to be screaming blasphemy at this, but I actually don't really have an issue with Mary Jane being portrayed as a reporter in Spider-Man PS4. I feel like it kind of adds a bit more depth to her character as opposed to her just being Peter's damsel in distress. It's the same reason for why I am so lenient towards the Flash TV series. Most people hate the idea of the show focusing on more than the main character, but here's the thing, I actually think that it is what kind of helps keep the character relevant in media. Because when you look at stuff like Flashpoint that show ideas from more obscure stories, they do kind of dig deeper into Flash's character as opposed to just exploring the core aspects of his character. And that's what the Flash TV show does for me personally as a fan. Yeah, I will admit that the show does have a few writing flaws here and there, but in my opinion the good outweighs the bad. Which is why I still to this day have never given up on watching it, like most people have. But anyway, my point is that Mary Jane being portrayed as a reporter in Spider-Man PS4 is not necessarily a bad idea. However, I will say this. I do think that the detective missions with Mary Jane were a bit unnecessary, like they could have just saved her for a separate storyline. Because, they tried to cram both her stories and Peter Parker's stories together in the same game, and it just didn't work. Because, this is a Spider-Man game, not a Mary Jane game, but, it's whatevs. Miles Morales' character role in Spider-Man PS4, however, is interesting, and is what really gets me excited for what's to come. And after 1 year of silence, Insomniac Games has finally revealed to us the spin-off game of Spider-Man PS4. Some people think it's weird that Insomniac is giving Miles Morales this much recognition so soon, but I disagree. I think that this is the perfect time for Miles Morales to shine as his own character. Because ever since he first started out in Marvel Comics, Miles Morales hasn't exactly had the best public perception. Despite having some pretty interesting and unique qualities about his character, Miles Morales was still very similar to Peter in a lot of ways. He was into science and was often awkward and shy most of the time, which made most people think of him as a Peter Parker clone for many years. But then Spider-Verse came along and had changed that by making Miles an artist and a bit more angstier than his comic book counterpart. But more importantly, making him out to be his own character, which I think really worked out well for him. And Insomniac giving Miles Morales his own game just adds onto that aspect alone, based off of the musical theme and the phrase "be yourself" that I think was shown towards the end of the trailer. However, I do think that they really could have just called this game Ultimate Spider-Man instead of Spider-Man Miles Morales, because that's essentially what his character is in the Marvel Universe. He is in fact the ultimate version of Peter Parker. I don't know why most Marvel adaptations insist on making Miles out to be the next Spider-Man, when really his origin story solely revolves around him being completely different from Peter. I mean, for crying out loud, he has the Venom Blast and the ability to turn invisible. If that doesn't scream completely different character, then I don't know what does. Like I said in the last video, Peter Parker being portrayed as an angsty teenage superhero isn't really a proper representation of his character. Of course, anyone who knows Peter Parker knows that he is the kind-hearted, thoughtful superhero who's all about responsibility. So therefore, I think the real reason for Miles Morales' existence in Marvel Comics is to not really serve as the replacement of Spider-Man, but rather the replacement of the teenage angsty aspect of Spider-Man. You can try and argue that Peter Parker does make a few mistakes here and there, to which he most certainly does, but at the end of the day, what do we really know about Peter Parker in general? And that's where my video on why Spider-Man is better than Spider-Boy comes into play. I don't really say too much in the video, so the video's not really long, but I think if you can connect the dots and see where I'm coming from on the subject, you'll have an entirely different viewpoint of teenage Peter Parker in your mind. But anyway, back to Miles Morales. I like how Insomniac decided to have his hair look a bit more trimmed compared to how his hair looked in Spider-Verse. One minor nitpick I will say I do have about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is Miles Morales' hair. I wasn't a fan of them having him sport an afro, because realistically having that much hair on your head would make it difficult for you to put on a Spider-Man mask. But then again, this movie was animated, so it doesn't really matter. I just think that it looks a bit too silly and unrealistic for my taste. Also, I liked how they incorporated the original comic book suit design for Miles into the game. I thought that was pretty cool. However, I do think that the lines that they added to the suit were very unnecessary. Because, like, he is wearing a Spider-Man suit for Christ's sakes, not a fucking stealth suit. But again, it's whatevs. Anyway, so based off of what's been shown in the trailer, it seems like this game is going to be an entirely separate story focused on Miles Morales, which I'm all for. This is kind of what I've been wanting to see in the movies. For the longest, I've always wanted to see Scarlet Spider-Man get his own live-action movie. The Kane Parker one, not the Ben Reilly one. But of course, Sony always has their excuses of always wanting to play things safe with Spider-Man by rebooting Peter Parker, instead of actually taking the time to branch out and develop new characters on screen. But anyway, I'm excited for this game, can't wait to see what suits they're going to add into it. I really hope though that they don't have Miles Morales wear any of Peter Parker's Spider-Man suits, that would be weird. I think that at the very least they should add in some custom-made and hidden gem suits. But anyway, those were my thoughts on Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you psyched for this game, or are you more excited for Marvel's Spider-Man 2? Either way, feel free to like and share this video with your friends and family if you enjoyed it. I'm King Bishop, wash your hands, stay safe, and remember, Black lives do matter. Anyways, peace out folks, and I'll talk to you guys next time. By the way, side note, Yuri Lowenthal absolutely kills it as Peter.